no secret that K-pop has really been taking over the Western market in the last several years. We've seen acts like Blackpink and BTS selling out massive stadiums and arenas and headlining festivals. We've seen all of their solo members release charting projects over here. K-pop is bigger than ever in North America right now, and I think it's only getting bigger, especially with things like the K-pop Demon Hunters movie that was the Sony and Netflix collaboration. I'm seeing so many people talk about it. K-pop is in my ear all the time, and so I figured I would just go ahead and do another K-pop video. We did one a couple years ago, so if you want to watch that one, there will be a link in the description, but stick around for this one. It's going to be quite a bit updated. We're going to be making a K-pop style song in the style of like Blackpink, Tease, Aespa, some NCT 127, and Monsta X. It's definitely going to be dark. It's definitely going to be hip-hop and trap-based, and it's going to be a fun time. So we're going to dive in and check all of that out in 1 second. But before we do, my name is Austin. You're watching Make Pop Music. If you like this video, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want a chance to win one of our sample packs, preset packs, MIDI packs, or loop packs from our website, Make Pop Music, all you need to do is leave a comment down below within the first 3 days of the video being posted, and we will pick a winner next week on our Instagram. So make sure that you follow us over there and check out our stories every day. But other than that, let's dive in. We have a lot to cover. The first thing that I want to do is I want to just find some sounds that we can kind of use. I'm going to go to this pack called The Works that we actually have on our website, and I want to choose this one because we did so many different genres inside this pack, and with K-pop kind of flirting with pop, hip-hop, electronic, any kind of like even, garage, there's tons of different things that you can have. So I'm just going to start kind of sorting through kicks and snares, and I'm going to come up with a little kit that I can use. Maybe I'll try the electronics. All right, so here is what we finished with. I have this kick called EDM Snapped out of The Works, and I'm turning it down 3 semitones so it kind of falls into where we need it to be for our key. Probably actually put it right there around F sharp. And then I'm also going to show you, we'll have this snare come in later. This one's called Brick. We have this little rim shot that I'm going to be using in the verses. We have this like pre-shifted clap that I think works really well layered on a snare. And then we have this electronic clap right here. So all of these are from The Works. So now I'm going to go ahead and just lay down a pattern, and I'm going to make it something pretty simple. I'm going to be at kind of a slower tempo. I'm calling this 176, but it's really closer to like 88. I just don't know if we're going to do 4 on the floor stuff yet. So here's what we have for the pattern. It's just your pretty typical syncopated kick and snare. I don't want anything too wild because I'm going to add extra percussion. And I want to layer that snare with some kind of like noisy snare or roomy snare. I have a little bit of reverb on the rim hit, but I want something that adds a little bit of like static, similar to like what you would hear in Idol from the K-pop Demon Hunter soundtrack. I'm going to try to find some kind of snap or clap or something to layer. So now we have this. I have this roomy snare. This is just out of the Sweet Tooth pack. And I've tuned it up so it's not so much mid frequency. If I had it normal, it fills out a track nice, but it could get muddy. So I'm just taking it up 9 semitones, and then I have this little noise that I'm basically just cutting and gating. And I want to layer that with some kind of orchestral hits that feels very dark K-pop, so I'm going to pull up Damage. So here I just have the Studio Armageddon kit. I'm just doing some like... almost sounds like Terminator, and I'm just going to basically mimic the kick pattern. They'll get a little bit louder in the second half of the verse, and then I'm also layering in this little kind of percussive loop that I found out of Damage. So now for all the drums, we have a pretty nice bed. And we can already start to see how different K-pop is feeling than something Western. It feels much more cinematic. It feels much more layered. We have that orchestral stomp and stuff in there. So it's feeling good. I want to go ahead and kind of lay down the bass line and some chords so we can start figuring out melody-wise what the song is going to be. All right, for the bass, I want to lay down an 808. I might swap to like a Reese bass later, but I want to just kind of syncopate that with a kick. And so I have this 808 called Mr. Clean. I can't remember which pack this one's out of. This might be out of Poptopia. Yeah, one of our original kind of serum packs. And it's super clean. I added this extra octave in there, so like these low notes have a little bit of harmonic content. But let's just go ahead and lay that over. All right, let's lay it down. So here's what we finished with. We're just gonna have two kind of simple notes. We're gonna kind of go between the C sharp and this A. And then we'll kind of bring it down to that, I guess it would be a G sharp. Have some little jumps in there so it feels kind of like in that realm of like Stray Kids or NCT 127. K-pop people love using slides. That feels great. I'm gonna go ahead and start popping in some synths. So I'm gonna pull up Serum and just lay down some pads. I don't want anything too crazy, but I want a melodic bed. So I have this little pad, it's called Malotron. This one's out of the works as well. Again, not trying to promote or anything. It's just, if you wanna find these, I wanna let you know where they are. But so far, everything's been off of our website except Damage. So we have that C sharp minor, and then we're gonna go into this A. And we're gonna do an A major 7 on that. So C sharp minor. Boom. A major 7. And we're gonna go between those two. I wanna go ahead and layer that with an extra kind of choir that has a little bit more melodic movement. So we have this mixed choirs patch, and I'm just gonna play that C sharp minor, but I'm also gonna play a melody on top. There we go. Let's lay that in. So it's sounding good. Now we have chords, we have melody. But I want some extra sauce. I want these kind of like noisy pads. So I'm gonna pull up a couple different pads and maybe do some post-processing so we can kind of fill out the stereo arrangement. So the first pad that I have is just this Atmos little granular pad. And I'm just doing some processing on that with Spaced Out by Baby Audio. Here's what it sounds like straight out of the plugin. I'm just adding some delay and reverb. And then adding kickstart to give us like a half note swell. What really would be a quarter note if you're in 88 beats per minute. So we'll just lay down some like pedaling tones like that. I also have this extra pad that I want to layer in as well. This one's just called the hype pad. And again, we're kind of just going to pedal on a root note there. So now, with all of these synths, we have this. So we are using it to have a little bit of counter melody, and that's feeling great, but what I want to do is for the second half of this verse right here, instead of having this 808, I want to swap over to a Reese bass, so we're going to add a little bass in Serum. So I have this bass called the Purest Reese. Might pull the voices down just a hair. I don't need it quite that crazy. There we go. Super thick. I'm probably going to sidechain it just a hair with kickstart, but I want it to be pretty sustained. And then I'm layering that with this extra little saw wave. So I'm going to have that as kind of this saw layer in the background just to give me some buzz. So here's what it sounds like going from the 808 to the Reese bass. And one thing that I need to do real quick is I need to do some automation to this volume right here, which I did, but it looks like it didn't hold. So we're just going to pull that down to 0 because I don't want that sustaining over the Reese bass. So it's feeling a little bit thicker. I want to go ahead and add in like a little counter melody, maybe one more little high string, and then we'll probably move to a pre-chorus. I got this little pad right here called the Horizon pad. We're just using it to bridge essentially the two verses. And then for the second half of that verse where it swaps to the Reese bass, we just have these high strings right here. Got a nice little like fine-tuned wobble on them, feel really analog. And then we have this little glassy bell that's just doing a little bit of counter melody. I might actually swap this note right here. Let's try that. That feels great. I think that's going to be it for the verse. Let's go ahead and let's move on to what should be like a pre-chorus. So this is where K-pop, it starts to also differentiate a bit from just kind of like standard Western pop, is that it'll typically, if it has like a really dark, minor-y sounding verse, it'll typically either swap the key to major or it'll use some of the major chords within that key to just kind of have a shift in vibe. So I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to load up kind of just a simple little sine wave pad and come up with some chords that can kind of give me a slight vibe change that still falls into the key, and we can still have a melody kind of bridge the two gaps. You don't want it to be like a night and day difference, but it needs to feel very different than the verse. Okay, so here's the chords that we have. I did 4 chords, but I might mute it because the melody that I have in my head for the vocal, I kind of just want to be by itself, but we have this. Feeling kind of jazzy. Lots of 7th chords. And I'm layering that with just this little, like, almost like a DX7 style keyboard. This one's called Prom Queen. It's giving us that kind of like K-pop, J-pop, almost like jazzy vibe. One, two, three, four, chorus will come in there. So I'm going to leave that right now. I kind of want to have like a little drum build-up, so I might just layer the snare. Or maybe... I might layer that, and I might find like a cool little damage thing, print those out, and then automate that up together. So here's what the drums sound like. Again, it's just like a syncopated little rising drum. Sounds chaotic, but as I put a filter on it with a high Q and kind of automate that up, gives me this nice, cool, like, tension builder. And when I layer it with those cool, like, 7th chord jazzy chords, we'll do a mute there, and then I want some risers and hits as well. Okay, so I added some risers and hits. I think all of these are out of Sweet Tooth. We just have a tonal hit at the very start, playing a C sharp just to kind of like bring in the vibe that will be the leading tone. And then I just have this little sweep impact going into that little down pre-chorus. We also have an exhaust hit, and then a bunch of swells. Drop out, and then we'll have one little melodic swell right there that'll lead into the chorus. So when I'm doing my swells, I like to have noise swells, like the kind of white noise, exhaust, washy thing. But then I also like to have something that has like some tone or melody in it. So by having this, it's in D sharp, but I just obviously popped it up one note. So we're just playing that E, which is the 3 of our key, basically C sharp minor. Builds a little bit of tension, and then it resolves right here with a C sharp rising right here. Then we're back into the original chord progression, or some version of it. So that feels pretty good now for the pre-chorus. I'm obviously going to add vocals later, but I think let's start fleshing out the chorus because we need this to hit big. So here's the pattern that we're going to be doing for the drums. I'm going to have to layer in like percussion loops, but here's what we have. I don't want that syncopated boof, boof, boof. I want this to feel different. The 808s are going to be much more sustained. We're going to go for like that big Blackpink, almost like a trap drop. So I'm going to be doing that, but I need some kind of percussion just to make this feel more interesting. So here's what we have as our main hat loop. Has a lot of movement, but it's not just like a steady 8th note or 16th note that'll get boring. Here's this little percussion loop that actually has like some tonal stuff in there, and I kind of just tune each of those tonal hits by hand to make them feel decent with a song. Adds a nice little bit of swing. We have some accent percussion. And then once I mix all of that, we have these kind of sidechain crashes. Lots of bounce, feels really, really good, feels huge. Let's go ahead and pop our 808 in there. It's basically just gonna be... That's it. Here's what it sounds like just with our 808. Again, we're playing around with some slides, but the chorus is much more pedaling on that C sharp rather than going up to that A and then that G sharp. We're kind of sitting here for a bit longer to build tension. Feels great. Feels good to me. Let's add in the kind of chorus synths. I want to have something that does that kind of like traditional Blackpink, Monsta X pluck melody. So here's the patch that I'm going to be using. This is called that Robinson Flare. I believe this is out of the works as well. Yep, it is. And I'm going to just play like a simple kind of descending plucking. So we'll play that with it. And I'm going to layer that with this extra preset that we have that was actually inspired by a Lisa song called Rockstar. So we're going to layer those two, and that'll be kind of our little drop noise. And that feels cool. I want to add some layers that are going to be tucked a little bit more in the background, but that can add a little bit of reverb, a little bit of thickness, because both of these are pretty bright, aggressive sounds. I just want something that'll kind of fill out the arrangement a bit more. So I added this little key. This one's called Ultimate Vibe. As you can tell, it's a lot lower. I'm going to use that to kind of fill out the low mid information so we can make like a wall of sound. And then I'm using this one called Some Rings, inspired by, I believe it was 7 Rings by Ariana Grande. We'll go up an octave. And that's going to add quite a bit of mid-range information and just like a nice, pretty sustain. And then I'm popping these little high strings and mellow strings in there, just to give us something that kind of pedals on a chord, so everything's not so plucky. In the mix. So I want to do one more thing. I want to take a patch, print it out, and then basically reverse it. So we'll have this exact same melody, but kind of swelling up. So here's what we have. Essentially, I just printed that out, cut each note, rearranged it, and then just like crossfaded each one up and bounced it. And to add some sauce, I put thermal on here. Without it, it just sounds like this. Just kind of doing some morph distortion. Really fun, adds a little bit of ear candy. And then this is really fun. I had this idea to kind of put like a little, what would be like a stinger. So instead of just like letting that stinger play out like normal, I'm actually going to just kind of hit them super staccato-y. And it'll give me that cool little zap. And then the last thing, I feel like it's not a K-pop drop unless you have like a big brass hit. So we have this one called Hans Up, like a Hans Zimmer little pun, if that's your thing. And then that's probably everything we need for this chorus. Let's go into a post-chorus right here. I'm probably going to pull out a lot of the big sustaining things, but I do want to go ahead and layer that lead sound. I want to layer that with something that can act as a lead if there's not going to be a vocal there. So for this sound, I wanted something super aggressive, so I just found this like really buzzy saw lead. Kind of has like a string vibe. Super sick. Added a little bit of reverb, and then I just made that stinger a little bit louder. And when we hear that post-chorus now, it goes crazy. Let's add all of our risers and hits just so the chorus feels big and grandiose, and then I'll lay on vocals. Let's take a look at all the ear candy. There's quite a few hits. We talked about those risers before. I did add a bass drop to fill that blank space. Riser. So we have a couple tonal hits, like I talked about before. We have a big orchestral impact, and then we just have these like crash effects hits. So it fills out the space nice. We have this. That happens on the main one. We have these that happen every 2 bars. We have this exhaust. And altogether, it gives us this really nice, just kind of like customized impact. It's not just something that you just pull straight out of pack. So that feels good. I think everything instrumental-wise is done. I'm going to lay vocals on this, kind of flesh it out a little bit more, just tighten some things up, and then check back in. I have vocals tracked. We can go ahead and take a listen. I'll kind of explain my mindset when I'm writing vocals. K-pop's a little differently. I don't write a lot of K-pop. I obviously can't speak Korean at all. So I wrote everything in English. If I were pitching this, they'll typically just translate that later. That's not a huge deal for pitching to K-pop. However, one thing that is important is that each section kind of feels like a specific vocalist, especially if it's a group or an ensemble. You don't want everything to be kind of one note. So as we go through this, I have a verse that's a little bit lower, a little bit moodier, a little bit spacier. Then I have a kind of faster rapped vocal. Then we have something that's like super R&B. And then we just have like your typical gang kind of crowded K-pop, epic chorus. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the verse. Here's what we have. The vocal chain, I should say, is a Sony C800G into a Rupert Neve Designs Newton channel strip, 1176 Rev D, Opto compressor, and then into my interface. And raw, the vocal sounds like this. Some people are born great, some people are forged. We added a few effects. Most of these aren't doing too much. The main one is we have a little bit more compression happening, and we have a little bit of EQ happening, but that's really it. Some people are born great, some people are forged. Some shine like the sunlight, but most are ignored. When we pop that in the mix. Some people are born great, some people are forged. Some shine like the sunlight. Then we pop in all the wet effects. This is really where a vocal starts to kind of take shape. We have a Roland Dimension D down here, adding width. Some people are born great, some people are forged. Then we have a short reverb and a long reverb. These are from Seventh Heaven. Some people are born great, some people are forged. And then we just have an 1/8 note delay and a 1/4 note delay. These are both Echo Boy. The 1/4 note delay has a little bit of vintage verb after it just to kind of pop it in the mix. There it is if you want to copy it. Some people are born great, some people are forged. Some shine like the sunlight. So that's what we're going for the verse. We have these little ad-libs in here. They're basically the same exact chain. I just added doubler to spread them out. And then I just added spaced out to give them that kind of like super wet, super ambient vibe. I want them super tucked. So here we go, lead vocal with the ad-lib. People are born great, some people are forged. Some shine like the sunlight, but most are ignored. I've put in my time, my blood, sweat, and tears. I've given every piece of me for years and years. I'm gonna hit my mark, Let's go into the second vocal. This one's going to be quite a bit less wet. We have less plate reverb. We have less quarter note delay. I can probably actually go even less than that. And you want less wet effects because it needs to be punchy. You need to be able to articulate what's being said. So we're treating it a little bit drier.
Given every piece of me for years and years. I'm gonna hit my mark, gonna hit my targets and reload again. I'm gonna show my spark, gotta reach new markets and explode again. I wanna take the world by storm, don't act like I didn't warn you. I did it.
And I wanted to make it super K-poppy, so I added these little harmonies. We have a little 3-part harmony.
I didn't warn you.
So the first one that we have,
I didn't warn you.
we have that as a melody. Then we have this on the left side.
I didn't warn you.
And then we have this on the right side.
I didn't warn you.
All together, we have this really nice little pretty 3-part harmony.
I didn't warn you.
Very K-pop. They love harmonizing. Then let's go into this pre-chorus. Pre-chorus is only one vocal. It is sang, and then I'm layering it with a vocoder. I'll show you that in 1 second.
Too many 20-hour days of sleepless nights, 100,000 songs to sing and lines so bright. I'll do it all again to reach a whole new height. But it is finally my time.
All right, let's talk about that. Lead vocal is the same exact chain as the verse. The vocoder, I'm just playing with the MIDI down here. I'm playing the same notes that we have on the chords going on the main little pad. And that essentially is sending this out to vocal synth on a vocoder track. So we have vocal synth 2 by Isotope. And I'm just using the flooded conversations preset.
Days and sleepless nights, 100,000 songs to sing and lines so bright. I'll do it all again to reach a whole new height.
No wet effects at all on that. Pop that with a vocal.
Too many 20-hour days and sleepless nights, 100,000 songs to sing and lines so bright. I'll do it all again to reach a whole new height. But it is finally my...
And then this is really important. We're pulling out all of the wet effects. We're doing a mute on the vocal effects bus. And we're doing a mute on, I believe, the synth bus as well, because we want that silence to really hit.
Reach a whole new height, but it is finally my time.
Because now we're going into a massive, massive chorus. So in the chorus, we have our lead vocal up the top, all the same kind of treatment and wet effects that I talked about earlier, the widening, eighth note delay, quarter note delay, and a reverb.
Now you hear me coming through the speaker. Everybody wants a little piece of this. Shows are selling out, all the ones who were sleeping on me. At like day ones, now I got hits.
So we've got that for the lead. We've got a double, which means I track that same exact vocal line 2 more times, and I panned one 100% left, and I panned one 100% right. And that's going to give me a really wide, polished vocal.
Now you hear me coming through the speaker. Everybody wants a little piece of this. Shows are selling out, all the ones who were sleeping on me. At like...
And everything was saying pretty tight, but I did add vocal line just because we want these to be uber tight. And then we have these little harmony lanes. Exact same processing, but sometimes on harmonies, what I like doing is adding a little bit of modulation. So something like a vocal thickener preset on a 910, or adding a little bit of extra chorus, or something just to kind of like tonally separate it from the leads. And so I popped that on there, and I'm just singing an entirely different harmony.
Now you hear me coming through the speaker. Everybody wants a little piece of this. Shows are selling out, all the ones who were sleeping on me. I like day ones, now I got hits. Everyone's a fan.
And I'm singing that a little bit more straightforward. In my mind, I'm like, okay, maybe that's another member of the group. We have really singy right here. We have a little bit less singy. And then I'm just doing my kind of typical thickening thing where I take my main vocal, I duplicate that, pitch it down an octave in auto-tune, and then pop on doubler on the 4 voices preset so I can get some width.
Now you hear me coming through the speaker. Everybody wants a little piece of this.
And when I layer that all together.
Now you hear me coming through the speaker. Everybody wants a little piece of this. Shows are selling out, all the ones who were sleeping on me. At like day ones, now I got hits.
When you put it all together, I believe this is everything that we have for the entire song. I did pop a little intro over here also as I moved everything back. It's just that Rockstar lead, and I'm just automating up a Pro Q. But that's going in. That's really the only change. Let's go ahead and let's take a listen to everything as we have it now.
Some people are born green, some people are forged. Some shine unlike the sunlight, most are ignored. I've put in my time, my blood, sweat, and tears. I've given every piece of me for years and years. I'm gonna hit my mark, gonna hit my targets and reload again. I'm gonna show my spark, gotta reach new markets and explode again. I wanna take the world by storm, don't act like I didn't warn you. I didn't warn you. Too many 20-hour days of sleepless nights, 100,000 songs to sing and lines to write. I'll do it all again to reach a whole new height. But it is finally my time. Now you hear me coming through the speaker. Everybody wants a little piece of this. Shows are selling out, all the ones who were sleeping on me act like they was, now I got hits. Everyone's a fan when you're on top. People circle back when your name's in lights. Now the label's filling up my inbox, sending out 7-figure checks cause I'm up in my place.
And there you have it. That's everything that I would do to start a K-pop song. In all fairness, K-pop tends to have different structures. So if I were to make a second verse or a second pre-chorus, it wouldn't just be a copy-paste of this. I would probably swap up the drum pattern, maybe do like a 4 on the floor thing. I would maybe go to like acoustic guitar instead of keys for the next pre-chorus. It's really important that K-pop, you don't do a lot of copying and pasting, but for this, obviously that would be a 2-hour video if we did all of that. So I'm going to leave it right here. We have a really defined verse, a really defined pre-chorus, and a really defined chorus. That feels like a great K-pop start for me. So if you like this video, please let me know down in the comments below. Again, if you want to check out most of the sounds that you heard, they're all from packs on our website, specifically The Works, Poptopia, Lush, and probably Sweet Tooth are the ones that you should check out first. But if you leave a comment down below, we do pick one winner every week at random that you could win one of those packs or any other pack off of our website completely for free. So leave a comment within the first 72 hours and follow us on Instagram to see if you won next week. But that's going to do it for this video. I'll be back soon with more content. And until then, much love. Peace.